So if any of you guys have seen or looked at any of the news that's going on as far as in the trucking world, there are truck drivers, there are owner operators protesting in California. They basically shut down the port. I believe in like, what was it? I have to go in and look. I believe it was like somewhere in Oakland, maybe, or something like that. They shut down one of the ports and actually caused there to be a disruption of, the volume of containers being shipped out. And so there's a big thing about it. I think the governor of California said that they were going to work on something to be able to get things moving again. But I wanted to talk about how that affects you as a dispatcher, because some of you guys are actually from California, and I know some of you guys actually even asked if it would affect you. As a matter of fact, if any of you guys are from California, say that's me in the chat. I believe this video will actually help you understand, I should say, Assembly Bill 5 in California. Can everybody see it? Let me just get at least 3 to 5 people say yes. The trucking market in California, let alone America, plays a vital part in the economy of not just the state, but again, the country. So I don't see why you would sleep on that. And these truckers are not playing. Like, as we can see, they're shutting down a whole port. But anyways, I think he'll make right. I don't know. Who knows? Governor Newsom I don't agree with a lot of his stuff anyways. But all right, let's get into this article. Everybody said they could see it. So this is Investopedia. I found this article on Investopedia. Investopedia does a really good job breaking down all the dynamics of it so that it leaves you with no real questions, even though I'll open it up for you guys to ask questions. Just so you guys know too, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth from my phone and the computer. So I have another section of the article on my computer. I'm sorry, on my phone. So I'm gonna read a portion from the computer, then I'm gonna jump on my phone once I get to that part, just so we break down like I said, every dynamic. All right. So what is California Assembly Bill 5? California, and I'm just gonna skim through this article. I'm not gonna actually so if you guys are wondering, like, man, why are you reading so fast? I'm gonna more so break it down and explain it as I'm going, but I might skip through some pieces. And I just want to read this article and then let you guys know how it affects dispatchers or how it doesn't, the pros and the cons, all that stuff, what's happening with the truckers. Then we can get right into questions about what we talked about in the last webinar. So California Assembly Bill 5, also known as AB5, is popularly known as the gig worker bill. Reason being is because the legislation, which we'll read in a little bit, was basically put together to combat against the economy of gig work, which would be like, this is like right around the time Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Uber, Lyft, and all those different companies began to like really expand. And so the bill was made to protect gig workers from getting taken advantage of, basically, because there's a difference between an employee and an independent contractor. So as a gig worker, you're considered an independent contractor, which relieves the employer, right, of certain responsibilities that they would have to accommodate for if you were an employee, right? So the bill, which is again popularly known as the gig worker bill, is a piece of legislation that went into effect 2 years ago. Well, actually going on 3 years ago, January 1st, 2020, and required companies that hire independent contractors to reclassify them as employees. Now, the passage of Proposition 22 later that year, which I believe got passed in like November or something of that same year, overrode the Assembly Bill 5 to protect Uber Eats drivers, Uber drivers, DoorDash drivers, and stuff like that. So Proposition 22 basically defended those gig workers under the Assembly Bill 5. Key takeaways. I'm just going to skim through these. California Assembly Bill 5, AB5 extends employee classification status to some gig workers. In other words, they're like, look, we're going to establish this bill to protect you guys in case Uber, DoorDash, and all these places try to take advantage of you and use your services without giving you much good benefit. So under this AB5, companies must use a 3-pronged test to prove if workers are independent contractors or not employees. Now, this independent contractors versus employee argument, debate, whatever you want to call it, is not just a state thing. California didn't just come up with it. The IRS actually has a classification of what defines an independent contractor or an employee. So at a federal level, they do have their guidelines, right? But because we are the United States of America, each state can design their own legislation based upon what they see fit. On September 5th, 2020, so this is 9 months after January, where the AB5 went into effect, the California legislature passed Assembly Bill 2257, which exempts a long list of job categories from AB5 structures. In other words, they passed AB5 and said, okay, we're going to designed this bill to make a distinction between independent contractors and employees, specifically geared towards gig workers, right? Then 9 months later, they realize, okay, unless we make this thing more direct, it's gonna fall under an umbrella of a lot of different people and cause a lot of confusion and stuff. So the California state government said, you know what, let's pass Assembly Bill 2257, which will exempt specific companies. Now, this is where I'm gonna eventually break into towards the end and show you guys how this protects an independent freight dispatcher. I'm going to show you guys. Some of you guys might, there might be some law people that stumble across this video and they're like, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about and stuff like that. This stuff is actually kind of common sense in my opinion. Now, I am giving you my opinion at the same time, but you'll have 10 lawyers. So because this specific bill is kind of vague in a way, there's a lot of different lawyers that are going to give you a lot of different opinions. I'm not a lawyer, but I can, logically think and look at this and say, this is what I believe. So we're gonna jump back into that. I'm gonna show you guys why that won't affect you as a dispatcher. So in a nutshell, don't be worried about this bill, but I do want to show you how it could possibly affect owner operators, which would technically kind of affect the volume of work that you might have, if that makes sense. Keep in mind, if you're a dispatcher in California, you don't have to dispatch just for truckers in California, just so you know. And that might even be a long shot. I don't think it would even affect you to that degree. It really just depends how it plays out, right? So September of 2020. Now, fast forward 2 months from September, November 3rd, California voters approve of what's called Proposition 22, which was an initiative backed by Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash that legally designates drivers for app-based ride-hauling delivery services as independent contractors, overriding AB5. So Uber and Lyft and DoorDash, they were like, hold up, you trying to mess our bag up, trying to mess our money up. So they came up with an initiative to combat against this assembly bill to basically back up their gig workers, right? Now, breaking down the dynamics really quick. California Assembly Bill 5 is a piece of legislation signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom in September 2019. It went into effect January 1st, 2020, and required, once again, that companies hire independent contractors to reclassify them as employees, with a few exceptions. In September of 2020, the California legislature then passed 2257, which we just read, which rewrote a number of requirements of AB5 and exempts a substantial list of job categories. An independent freight dispatcher will be listed in that, which I'll get into that at the end and show you guys what I mean by that. This specific Assembly Bill 2257 protects the dispatcher. So let me just skim through the rest of this real quick and jump back up to show you guys what I mean. California's AB5 expanded on a ruling made in case that reached the California Supreme Court in 2018. This is what I was talking about earlier. Dynamex, Operations West, Inc. versus Superior Court of Los Angeles. In 2018, Dynamex case, the California Supreme Court ruled that companies must use a three-pronged test known as the ABC test in determining whether or not basically an employee, a worker is an employee or an independent contractor. Here's the three-pronged test. Number one, the worker is free to perform services without the control or the direction of the company. As a dispatcher, you fall into that category. Number two, the worker is performing work tasks that are outside the usual course of the company's business activities. Once again, that falls under a dispatcher. You're good. These three what should I say? These three propositions basically are what would establish you as an independent contractor. So the worker, number three, is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as that involved in the work performed. Again, that would fall under the category of a dispatcher as well. So even if you weren't saved by Assembly Bill 2257, even under this what they call the three-pronged test, as a dispatcher would be good for that, right? They would still be covered. Now, this test holds companies to a higher standard and proving workers are independent contractors than was previously used in California. Assembly Bill 5 made this test the new golden standard requirement for all companies in the state, but it was designed to regulate companies. So as you can see, it was designed to regulate companies like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, so on and so forth. Uber and Lyft resisted these requirements of AB5 on August 10th, 2020. Basically they went back and forth because basically Uber, like I mentioned earlier, DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, all these places, they said, look, if you want us to label them as employees, we have to pay them workers' comp, unemployment insurance, paid time and paid sick and family leave. On top of that, if they're considered employees, They don't have the flexibility to be able to say, I can't work this day or I can work this day, which would take away from the point of it being gig work. Like, right, you just get on your app, you work a couple days, maybe a couple hours, go back and don't worry about it. Now, so they went back and forth, and this is where Proposition 22 came up, which protected them. Now, I mentioned earlier how the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because right here it says, and where it says important to know, Illinois has considered legislation that mirrors its guidelines. In New York, plans are in the works to introduce legislation that will protect gig workers on a similar scale. So as you can see, states like to follow suit on what other states are doing, depending on how it works out. Now, it looks bad on California's end because look at what these truckers are doing. Let me fast forward because I don't want to, go down I don't want to go down a rabbit trail on this. I want to revolve this all around dispatchers and how it protects you, and then bring it even to the truck drivers. Now, the reason why truckers are protesting is because I believe it was June of this year, the Supreme Court of the United States rejected whatever case that was brought to them. So this is what happened. There was a specific trucking association. I cannot remember what the name of this trucking association was, but this trucking association basically said, you know what? Let me pull it up here. All right, now that everybody's here, it says legal challenges prevented the law from going into effect in January 2020. That all changed when the Supreme Court refused to hear the California Trucking Association challenge to AB5. So remember, Uber and all of them, they said we're gonna fight against this, right? We're gonna create an initiative that's gonna fight against this, right? And that's exactly what they did. This is where Proposition 22 came about, right? And it protected them. Now, in regards to truck drivers, because owner operators, the people that mostly dispatchers dispatch for, well, you got, matter of fact, all dispatchers would dispatch for an owner operator or a trucking company that has owner operators or whatever, are considered independent contracts. So the California Trucking Association challenged AB5 and was like, look, the same way Uber and them challenged, they challenged it on behalf of owner operators. Now, what happened was the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear this. So it went back to the circuit court, which gave California basically the ultimatum on whether or not they were going to still pass it in applying to truck drivers. This is why all these owner operators are going crazy over in California, because they're like, no, if you wrote guidelines saving like real estate agents, freelancers and stuff like that, you can do the same thing, Governor Newsom, for us, because we are a vital part of California's economy, even America's economy. So basically, that's what took place, right? That's why this whole thing's going on. Now, how a dispatcher would come up in this. Remember, they had what they call the 3-prong test, which we just read. Are you able to perform work and have the flexibility to perform work outside of your work duties with the company? Yes. The other one was, the second one was, is the worker performing work tasks that are outside the usual course of the company's business activities? Yes. And then number 3 was, is the worker engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as that involved in the work performed? Yes. So just alone from AB5 standard, an independent freight dispatcher would be good. Now, because they directed it more towards the trucking industry, it still wouldn't affect, not even the broker. It would affect the owner operator, if anything. And here's why. Part 2 of that 3-prong test, or what they like to call it, says the worker is performing work tasks that are outside the usual course of the company's business activities. Owner operators are independent contractors working for either a trucking company or even maybe working directly with, if they're leased onto a company, whatever it may be. They're working for a trucking company or directly with a broker to haul loads, but their work is contained within the realm of what kind of work's being given to them by the broker or by a trucking company that they're leased under. So technically, the second part of that 3-prong test, how they like to call it, would boot them out of an independent contractor standard, which would technically make them an employee. So this is why there's such an uproar about it, because they're like, that's stupid. We should be able to be good when it comes to that, right? Now, that goes here nor there. I believe that the governor of California is going to eventually do the right thing, right? Because there's already an issue going on at the ports over there in, I think, Oakland. He's going to do the right thing, I believe. Either way, as an independent dispatcher, this is why you're good. Because remember when I mentioned AB or Assembly Bill 2257. Remember, this is the bill they passed after. They passed this bill after they passed AB5 to make a list of specific companies that are protected against AB5. One of them is this. This is a subdivision of that bill. Now, this is the actual subdivision. It's C1 subdivision A of Assembly Bill 2257. This is an actual bill. I'm reading from the actual bill. It says subdivision A and the holding in Dynamex do not apply to a contract for professional services. Let me pause there. I say it all the time as an independent freight dispatcher. You provide administrative professional services for a for a trucking company. So let me just keep reading. As defined below, and instead, the determination of whether the individual is an employee or independent contractor shall be governed if the hiring entity demonstrates that all of the following factors are satisfied. Number A, the individual maintains a business location, which may include the individual's residence, that is separate from the hiring entity. Okay, that you're clear on that as a dispatcher. Section B, if work is performed more than 6 months after the effective date of the section, the individual has a business license in addition to any required professional license or permits for the individual to practice in their profession. That would protect brokers, but not you guys because you don't need licenses as a dispatcher, right? But for anybody that's a broker, that would protect you guys. All right. Section C, the individual has the ability to set or negotiate their own rates for services performed. Again, that falls under the category as a dispatcher. Yes, you have that freedom and that flexibility. Section D, outside of project completion dates and reasonable business hours, the individual has the ability to set the individual's own hours. Yes, as a dispatcher, again, you're covered under that. Section E, the individual is customarily engaged in the same type of work performed under contract with another hiring entity or holds themselves out to other potential customers as available to perform the same type of work. Yes, you could be dispatching for ABC Trucking and then also be dispatching for, XYZ Trucking at the same time. It's like a freelancer in a way, even though you're not a freelancer. But so again, you will be cleared under that section. F, the individual customarily and regularly exercises discretion and independent judgment in the performance of services. Once again, yes. Part 2 of that same bill, right? Professional services mean the services that meet any of the following. Number 1, marketing, right? And I'm not going to read the whole part of that, but marketing, yes. Administration and human resources work. Travel agent services. Obviously, we aren't travel agents, so that doesn't matter. Graphic design, grant writer, fine artist. We're not none of those things. Services provided by an enrolled agent who is licensed by the United States Department of the Treasury. No, we're not under that, but they're just letting them know that they're covered too. And services provided by a photographer, photojournalist, all that good stuff. Freelance, writer, editor, newspaper, cartoonist. Services provided by a licensed esthetician, people that do eyelashes, I think that is, and people that, do face cream and all that. All right, basically what I'm trying to say is the part that I just read to you guys prior to me reading into section 2 protects an independent freight dispatch. Moving it on to the owner operators who you guys dispatch, there is a possibility. It's up in the air if the governor says, no, we're going to stick to this bill and we're not going to add any amendments to it. There's a possibility that a lot of owner operators would have to switch into employees, which would cause an issue for truck drivers and owner operators alike. I hope I'm making sense to you guys. I know I move kind of fast, but I just wanted to cover that really quick just to let you guys know that you guys are good as dispatchers in California. Even if you lived outside of California and, as we read in the article, it said Illinois, New York, and some other states were thinking about following suit and implementing that same bill to protect gig workers. And if it affects drivers, even in their state, it's not going to affect dispatch. So as dispatchers, you guys are good. The only thing I say, and this is separate from all of this, is to just pay attention to how the FMCSA labelizes a dispatcher. It very well may be a reality in the future that the FMCSA requires dispatchers to get licensed. I wouldn't be surprised, but that doesn't mean anything.